The United States has tested a new intercontinental nuclear missile to demonstrate the readiness of its nuclear forces. The missile was launched from the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California to maintain confidence in the reliability and effectiveness of the nuclear deterrent. According to Pentagon officials, such tests have been conducted more than 300 times before, and this test is not related to current world events. But is this really the case? Because this missile is capable of bringing all U.S. rivals to their knees, including China and Russia. Moreover, the initial test was postponed because of the desire to avoid tensions with China, but apparently these tensions have reached a breaking point, and the United States has openly demonstrated its new monster in a metal shell. The ICBM missile is a silo-based intercontinental ballistic missile that's responsible for delivering 180,000 kilotons of explosives and 400 nuclear warheads. To fully understand its power, it's enough to know that one such missile is capable of tearing apart a full-fledged island or a city measuring 125 by 125 miles. Previously, the United States had only the LGM-30G Minuteman III, which were the only intercontinental silo-launch missiles in the United States. However, the new weapon surpasses its analogs in all respects, from lethal force to incredible range, which, by the way, reaches 9,900 miles. To give you an idea, the distance from the coast of Washington to Beijing is only 6,800 miles, which means that the United States was developing the bomb with a margin of safety.
I know that when you're dealing with nuclear weapons, you must be perfect.
Each missile has up to 3 warheads, each of which can be equipped with a 350 kiloton W-78 or 450 kiloton W-87 warhead. The guidance accuracy of the blocks is estimated at 520 feet, which also exceeds the performance of the previous missile. Although it's emphasized that the test launch of the ICBM missile was planned in advance, everything strongly resembles the fact that these tests are a direct response to Chinese and Russian aggression on the world stage. Whether the United States will use the ICBM missile against its adversaries remains a mystery, but in any case, the launch of such a missile is a last resort, because why should global confidence be undermined if even one American aircraft carrier can bring China to its knees? The U.S. Navy confidently stated, "We can destroy China in 30 seconds." That's a fact. China has established various military bases in the South China Sea, especially on the Spratly and Paracel archipelagos, and has deployed radar and helicopter infrastructure on several smaller islands. In addition, the country is still working on construction in the region, which implies a possible expansion of its military presence. These defense systems make the South China Sea dangerous for American ships and fighters, but for some reason the enemy will not dare to attack the United States. Why? This is because China itself understands the power of the American aircraft carrier, because it conducted spy air patrols around the ship and saw what was on board. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the largest and most expensive warship ever built, has a significant advantage over Chinese missile capabilities. Its advanced technology and 82,000 square feet of deck make it better than any other aircraft carrier. The ship can carry up to 4 fighter squadrons and more than 90 tactical and support aircraft.
The ship is too large to go through the Panama Canal, so we have to go all the way south around Cape Horn.
The ship's air power is greater than that of 60 countries combined, and it has more stealth fighters than the entire Russian armed forces. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the newest and most advanced aircraft carrier in the United States, was first deployed in the face of rising tensions in the Pacific and later redeployed to the South China Sea. The ship embodies the advanced characteristics of the latest generation of warships with extensive modernizations, making it a powerful adversary with a staggering cost exceeding $177 billion. This behemoth has truly colossal power. The Ford weighs 97,000 tons, 32,000 tons heavier than the largest battleships of World War II. Despite its size, it's fast and reaches speeds of over 33 miles per hour thanks to 2 advanced A-1B nuclear reactors. The ship has almost 3 times the power of existing American supercarriers, providing about 300 megawatts of electricity. To see it on the water is to see an entire New York City block floating on the water. But besides this, the USS Gerald R. Ford is accompanied by an aircraft carrier group of 10 cruisers, destroyers, frigates, and even submarines. At least 2 of these ships are specialized in air defense systems, usually Arleigh-Burke-class destroyers equipped with powerful radar on board to detect targets at a distance of more than 200 miles.
Latest improvements have been put on board this ship.
In addition, they're equipped with anti-aircraft missiles and the Navy's Phalanx Sea-Whiz close-in weapon system, which is powered by radar-guided 20mm 6-round Gatling guns capable of firing up to 4,500 rounds per minute. Their firing is like a laser. To maintain its dominance, the U.S. Navy is fully investing in new technologies that have not been available for decades: lasers. Despite the nuclear hypersonic weapons of China, which can outrun a bullet and bypass the sensors of missile defense systems, the United States is adopting powerful lasers to protect its fleet from attacks by drones and hypersonic missiles. One of these lasers is Dragonfire.
So Dragonfire's laser-directed energy weapon demonstrator.
This huge laser gun is capable of burning through steel up to 0.02 inches thick in a matter of seconds. And if that doesn't seem like enough, let us remind you that missile cladding is often only 0.01 to 0.02 inches thick. The main advantage of the laser is that it doesn't require any time for aiming. Thanks to the work of sophisticated artificial intelligence algorithms, the system recognizes targets instantly, faster than the human eye can detect danger. Once recognized, the machine aims at the target and burns it with a dense laser beam. The only limitation that affects the power of Dragonfire is the range, which is only 7 miles. Nevertheless, this is more than enough to protect the aircraft carrier from any air threat, and even from Chinese hypersonic missiles.
The leading edge, not just of technology, but in demonstrating the end-to-end capability and inform the UK's future procurement decisions in this area.
In addition to prepare Ford for the new enemy attack environment, the latest CSSQT tests have demonstrated the effectiveness of modernized systems such as the Rolling Airframe Missile, the Sparrow Evolutionary Naval Missile, and the Mk-15 Phalanx Close-Range Defense System, capable of firing armor-piercing tungsten bullets. In addition, Ford will use an entire fleet of fighters, including an advanced, modernized F-22. This Friday, the Pentagon released an image that undoubtedly resembles official renders for the upgraded F-22, showing a number of improvements, including hidden external fuel tanks and external sensor modules. This series of modernizations is designed to surpass the capabilities of the 5th-generation fighters that emerged after the F-22 was put into service. Moreover, some of the systems currently being installed on the F-22 are designed to bridge the technological gap between the most advanced fighters today and the next 6th-generation fighter.
We were really building a fighter for the 21st century that could take on all of the advanced threats.
We can say that the Raptor is now as close as possible to becoming a new generation fighter. The United States has recently successfully demonstrated an advanced jet propulsion system that can accelerate both fighters and missiles to hypersonic speeds. Simply put, thanks to the new engine, the F-22 can reach speeds of more than 2,200 miles per hour, possibly even without afterburner. Just imagine what the invincible Raptor will be capable of. Now combine the power of the F-22 with the capabilities of the laser-powered Gerald R. Ford and its accompanying fleet, you'll get an incredible combination that can pacify any opponent. However, it came at a price. The cost of the entire Gerald R. Ford, including the full deck of the new F-22s, is unimaginable: $1.6 trillion. However, the long-term maintenance of this entire fleet costs no less than $1 trillion. Perhaps a single nuclear missile would be simpler and more profitable. The new hypersonic missile's already in Ukraine. Moreover, it's already been successfully launched at neighboring military facilities. But the main success factor was complete secrecy. This covert strike on the Russian army is very different from the previous ones. Unable to counteract this super modern missile, the Russians can only extinguish the fire and clear the rubble. But what is this mysterious strike, and why did it happen now? Let's find out. International tensions peaked after the recent missile attack on civilian infrastructure in Ukraine's capital. Russia cynically claimed to have hit military targets and then traditionally blamed Ukraine for everything. In response to this egregious crime, the UK allowed Ukraine to use its Storm Shadow missiles to strike Russian territory. They've already been used to destroy the Black Sea Fleet headquarters and other facilities. This made it clear that Russia has no countermeasures against these missiles, and the only obstacle to the painful use of these missiles is political decisions. Russia, for its part, is doing everything it can to ensure that such decisions are made without question. During the visit to the NATO summit in Washington, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced that he would continue the previous government's policy of using long-range weapons in the Russian-Ukrainian war. He said that Ukraine has the right to decide on its own how to use the Storm Shadow missiles provided by the UK with a range of 310 miles or more, including for strikes on military targets in Russia. Starmer's statement echoes the words of his predecessor, Rishi Sunak, who never explicitly stated that he'd authorized Kyiv to use the Storm Shadow to strike Russia, but made it clear that he had. The Kremlin is warned of a potential response if London allows the Ukrainian Defense Forces to fire long-range missile weapons at Russian territory, although what exactly can be opposed to the Storm Shadow missile? This is an air-launched cruise missile made by MBDA. It has a speed of about 620 miles per hour and is equipped with a 990-pound warhead. Guidance is provided by an inertial system, GPS, and a thermal homing head.
But in reality, it's a weapon of war designed to destroy an enemy's capacity to fight.
The only countermeasure to the British super missiles may be the S-400. According to Russian officials, this system is capable of shooting down the Storm Shadow missiles. The S-400 is capable of detecting and destroying cruise missiles thanks to its powerful radar and highly maneuverable interceptor missiles. However, success depends on factors such as timely detection and electronic countermeasures used by the Storm Shadow missile. But how ironic that these air defense systems were targeted by the Storm Shadow.
We manipulated such that we were able to change the downward slope on the vertical end of the trajectory.
That's right, the state-of-the-art Russian systems that they're so protective of became the first target of a British missile on Russian territory. Discontent is already spreading on Russian social media. However, this is not surprising given the price of $1 billion. How did this become possible? The non-export version of the Storm Shadow, which is used by the UK, has a range of up to 350 miles, which allows it to be launched far from the enemy's strike zone. One of the main advantages of this missile is its low flight profile. It flies at a very low altitude, making it less visible to radar and more difficult to intercept by air defense systems.
Into different types of terrains that we haven't been able to in the past.
Russia also uses the same tactic, but when faced with it, Russia fully realized its effectiveness. The Storm Shadow is equipped with an inertial navigation system combined with GPS, which allows it to determine its exact location and adjust its course during flight. This ensures high accuracy of hitting the target even in conditions of active electronic jamming. No matter how hard the Russians tried, all means were useless against this powerful missile.
Once you've taken the decision to launch it, then it might be a significant amount of time before it hits its target. You might want to change your mind, but with most cruise missiles these days, you don't have that option.
Also during its development, special materials for the body were chosen to reduce the missile's radar visibility. In fact, the Storm Shadow dissolves in the air, becoming invisible to radar. Add to this a tricky flight path that's constantly changing, and we have an almost elusive target for air defense systems. It's also important to note the warhead of the missile. It consists of two main components, a penetrating warhead that pierces even the strongest shelters, and a delayed detonator that causes maximum destruction inside the object. This means that the missile can hit not only surface targets, but also underground shelters and command posts. All in all, the Storm Shadow is a true technological masterpiece that demonstrates a combination of modern materials, advanced navigation systems, and treacherous flight paths. This makes it possible to bypass even the most advanced air defense systems, ensuring high combat effectiveness.
We recognize a need to develop a unitary type of warhead instead of the bombless that could minimize the collateral damage on the targets that we were going after.
However, what's important here is not the fact of the hit itself, but the whole range of consequences that follow. In fact, the entire Russian leadership has once again deeply embarrassed itself by frightening the world with its weapons. They once again faced a painful reality that showed them their place. That's why they are in no hurry to publicize this shameful defeat in the air. Secondly, it's worth mentioning the geopolitical component. The authorization of the use of Western weapons on Russia draws the final line between Western and European civilization and Russia, thereby outlining its position in the large-scale conflicts that are looming in the coming years. Thirdly, it can be called preparation for strikes that will be carried out in the future with the F-16. And the destruction of air defense systems fits in with these ideas. The UK's decision may also result in a long-awaited similar authorization from the US, which would allow Ukraine to end the war before the US elections, although this is a topic for a separate video. In addition to all of this, it's worth noting that Russia is actively moving missile-carrying aircraft even deeper into the rear to protect the already few carriers from destruction at border air bases. They have to fire mostly from the Caspian Sea, as there are frequent cases of missiles falling after launch, and this is the closest safe point for hundreds of miles. With the arrival of F-16s, which will be able to intercept these missiles more successfully, there's a possibility that the shelling will decrease. The F-16 is more of a multi-role platform for ground and air missions. It's like a Swiss Army knife of planes. This is a small performance gap, although the F-16 is about 170 miles per hour slower than Soviet jets, depending on the version. So if the F-16 is not radically better than what Ukraine already has in terms of performance, why have Ukrainian pilots been asking to fly these aircraft for years? The reality is that Ukrainian MiG-29s and Su-27s are much older versions than the same aircraft used by Russia. The Ukrainian versions of MiGs and Sukhoi are stuck in the past with inferior radar and weapons than those that Russia has on its modern versions. The Ukrainian MiG-29 can only detect aircraft at a distance of about 50 miles, while more modern Russian radars can track targets up to 100 miles away, including small radar tracks such as cruise missiles and certain drones. This way, Russia not only sees Ukrainian pilots from a greater distance, but can also shoot them first. The latest R-77 missiles can hit targets over 70 miles away, while Ukraine has nothing with that range or the ability to shoot and forget. So switching to the F-16 will completely change this equation with not only better radar sensors and electronic warfare capabilities, but also full access to the entire modern lineup of NATO armament. I didn't specify the exact range of the radar because it varies greatly depending on the specific version of the F-16 that Ukraine will receive. Among the weapons that the F-16 brings is the legendary AIM-120 AMRAAM used by the US and allies since 1991. The AMRAAM has a reputation for being an extremely deadly missile, giving Ukraine the ability to reach out over 65 miles along with fire and forget capability. Russian pilots have had a huge advantage over Ukrainian Air Force until now thanks to their active radar missiles, so giving Ukraine the F-16 and a steady supply of the AMRAAM puts Ukraine on much more equal footing. Another thing you have to remember is that the F-16 is going to have an expected lifespan of between 3,500 and 4,500 flight hours, while Soviet aircraft have only 2,000 to 3,500. So the F-16 is going to be a huge advantage there. But what was holding the West back for so long, preventing them from sending the F-16? Well, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov claimed that sending F-16s to Ukraine would be seen as a nuclear threat. But this is the same strategy that Russia has employed for years now, drawing supposed nuclear red lines in the sand for any action by the West that opposes their interests, not just in Ukraine, but all over the world. So I think the leaders of the United States and Europe are tired of nuclear blackmail. In fact, there's already experience of transferring disputed weapons. A perfect example of this is the AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missile, which targets and destroys enemy radar systems to blind the enemy and neutralize their longest-range surface-to-a missile batteries. The U.S. donated these HARM systems to Ukraine around July of 2022. They had an immediate impact on Russian air search and defense systems. When installed on a modern Western aircraft such as the F-16, the HARM can connect to the aircraft's more powerful radars and sensor systems to increase the detection range, allowing the pilot to fire the missile more accurately and with a much lower chance of return fire. Still, there are some concerns about adapting to the new aircraft, and Ukrainian pilots are excited about the modern digital cockpit of the F-16. Former Soviet MiGs and Su-27s have these old analog instrument clusters with dials and gauges with very few digital displays. In contrast, the F-16 uses multi-function displays to show all the most important information in the user interface, with analog dials used as a backup for less important tasks. Digital cockpits display information better and can customize the pilot's needs by quickly switching modes in an intuitive way. This reduces the burden on the pilot's attention, and the pilot's attention is a resource that's as valuable as the aircraft itself. But learning how to fly a Western aircraft with a completely different design language from Soviet aircraft meant that even skilled pilots needed months of training to be ready for combat. The F-16 itself is also very different from Soviet aircraft. The MiG-29 and Su-27 have been in service in Ukraine for a long time thanks to the additional strength that allows them to take off from civilian airfields, highways, and ordinary roads, meaning Russians have had a hard time finding and striking the aircraft on the ground since they're always shuffling to new positions. But the F-16 is far more sensitive to airfield conditions requiring pristine chef's kiss, the perfect runways, and a lot of maintenance to keep its advanced systems functional. This limits the number of F-16 locations in Ukraine, which reduces the effective combat range of the fighters. Ukraine's been working to improve its air bases to prepare for Western jets for this reason. But the difficulties are not only in pilots and air bases, but also in aircraft maintenance. According to a Government Accountability Office report, maintenance personnel in the United States Air Force require between 23 and 133 days of training just to reach the apprentice level. A small number of trained ground crews to maintain the fighters is almost as bad as not getting new fighters at all. The cost factor should also be considered. Every AMRAAM fired costs $1.8 million per missile to produce. Western leaders have publicly commented and recommended that these costs for Ukraine be maintained as long as necessary to force Russia to back down. But the Russian strategy for continuing the war, despite the lack of progress, seems to be based on the idea that Western support is running out. But in reality, most of the military assistance coming to Ukraine is surplus equipment that the US and other NATO countries were going to get rid of anyway. In the case of the F-16, Western countries have transferred their fighters to Ukraine as they're replacing old fighters with new F-35s anyway. In any case, the assistance saves money for some of these countries by eliminating the difficulties associated with decommissioning aircraft. Yes, believe it or not, decommissioning old equipment is expensive. Even if there's a long wait for the F-16 before Ukraine can fly full squadrons, starting this process now ensures that Ukraine will have access to hundreds of F-16s in the future. Even if the F-16s don't shoot down enemy aircraft for months, the mere fact that they're flying may force Russia to make a difficult choice between keeping the old airframes and preventing competition in the skies over Ukraine. What do you think? Write your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to watch our other videos on military technology to stay up to date. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more interesting details. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.